then was a lieutenant. I'm retired as a lieutenant colonel. I joined. All right, go ahead.
My name was Jim Mason, and I started with this group as a second lieutenant and left it as a captain, and then remained in the Air Force for 31 years, retired as a colonel in 1971.
Let's see, I went through a class of 43C and was in the 354th, and then I got turned down because of my ears, and ended up when they were forming 367th. I was second Louis, and a year and a half later I got out and I was a major.
That's pretty good rank, a year and a half, second Louis to major.
Right.
Were those called battlefield commissions?
Pardon?
Were those called battlefield commissions?
Promotions?
Yeah.
Battlefield
Yeah,
promotions?
so your survivors promotions, those are survivor promotions.
Yeah.
Well, did you guys all start in California? Is that where you went first?
Well, were you in California?
Yeah, we went.
Yeah, I was in I graduated from Williams Field, and then I was sent to Concord. I think about the same time, or a little before that, Scrappy, Blumer, was up at Santa Rosa, and then probably came over to Concord. Jim, where were you?
Well, I went from Luke Field to the West Coast Training Business, and I joined the 367th at Larry with Oakland, California.
Yeah.
You know, in the 393rd Squadron at Oakland, California, in the fall of 1943, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then we left there, went up to New York City, whatever the base was. We went through, got on the Duchess of Bedford and went to England, and then down, as you said earlier, to Stony Cross and found P-38.
I see that you said
Yes.
you said that the ship that you went across on wasn't called the Duchess of
Duchess of Bedford.
yeah, but it had a different.
We called it the Duchess of Bedpans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Duchess of Bedford. It was later sank in the invasion of one of the barrier reefs out there in the channel when they made the invasion of France. And that's how much the British thought of it.
Well, see,
After we went over them.
these two went over, I think, with the aeroplanes and with the group.
Went over with the group.
And then I went over with a bunch we went on the Ile de France, and we landed over there, and we went up to Goxville, and we got some low-level training up there in the 38. Reed was up there. Then we joined the outfit down there at Stony Cross, and that's where the outfit actually came together with this Stony Cross in England.
When we landed on Stony Cross, our whole group, there wasn't a man in it that had twin engine time. Not a single one. And I remember when I went to combat, I had 2 hours and 35 minutes, and I think you had about the same, didn't you, Jim?
Yeah, a couple of flights.
So we didn't know a damn thing about them. We had to learn all ourselves. And that's why I say we were good. Because we didn't have any of the, you don't do this and you don't do that. We just went out and found out what we don't do. Of course, we lost a few guys, but that's the way it happened with us. We all trained in 39 or single-engine aircraft in the States. I don't know, Chris did you?
No, I went through Williams Field in 38, and then I went to Concord, and that was 39. And then before I left, I was down there at the 332nd in Santa Ana, and that's 38. And then we went up to Goxville, and that was 38.
But
so
the original
quite
group that hit overseas, there wasn't a man there that had 38 times. Remember that?
I remember when we got to Stony Cross, and everybody was standing around looking at these P-38s, and 9th Air Force transferred to Wendell J Kelly, a major, real fine, nice stuff, down because he had P-38 time. He came out of the 20th group and had a lot of P-38 experience, both before and after. And he was up there briefing all the pilots, saying what a great airplane it was and how it was going to do all this stuff. And somebody said, well, Major, if you think it's so great, why don't you get him the hell out of here and give us a good airplane? And then a year later, somebody had said that, we'd have killed him because we really liked the bird after we got in it, learned how to fly it and what it could do. But our replacement pilots coming in, like Ed was in the first group, we were augmented from like 22 pilots per squadron up to about 30. And we got all the replacement pilots, and they came in and they had much more P-38 experience than any of the original group did. The old group staff, the commanders, and ops officers, the flight commanders, had 2, 3, 4 hours of flights in the bird, and all our replacements came in with 50, 100, 200 hours in it. And it was kind of a backwards business. The peons were leading the leaders, really, and telling us how to fly the airplane.
Did it work?
Oh, yeah, it worked.
To make it worse, I was with y'all when you went down to the 370th, and they had flown a few missions. They started talking about dive bombing, and they started talking about they got bomb blasts up to 5,000 feet. They got isolated fragments up to about 9,000 feet. Shoot, they found out the hard way where you got the bomb blast. Nobody had any information. It was all trial and error. We got some information from those guys.
I remember Colonel M coming up, or having a briefing and say, well, boys, today you go out and you get a feel of the airplane, and tomorrow you can practice once, and the next day we'll go out and mean business.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it works. And I know that first dive bombing mission I didn't think I'd ever make it, because I'd been watching those Grummins go straight down, and I tried to do the same thing. I missed the target by 7 miles. You know. But we picked it up pretty fast. I never bombed that way again.
Yeah.
But that was the whole case of it, where we actually had to find out what the do's and don'ts were. And sure, then about 3-4 months later, they send Tony LeVere over to show us how to fly them, but then it's too late. Because I remember Dale Rankin going up and putting on a show that was better than Tony.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, he came after we'd learned how to fly the bird. You know, he was great, but by the time he got there, we were fairly proficient ourselves, and we had learned by doing things the wrong way and survived. And our loss rates were pretty high, though,
Yeah.
considerably, particularly among the old-timers that didn't have any twin engine background or no training in the bird. So we didn't have bombing tables and graphs and clearance criteria and zones like you have today. Like, you don't go below a certain altitude, and if you drop a 500-pound bomb, you're going to get shrapnel up this high. We didn't have any idea of that. And we didn't, and neither did anybody else. You know, it wasn't like it was available someplace, just nobody had it. We were all learning the hard way.
This 38 would carry 2 2,000-pound bombs. And he and I went in one day after, I don't know what we were bombing, but whatever it was, we were shallow. And Scrappy dropped his bombs. They hit on a railroad track or something, and instead of penetrating, we were too shallow, and the bombs came up like this, and I'm coming in, and I'm going to hear these bombs going up past me.
Right up beside you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just learn from...
I think I got him right.
See, when we went over on the Duchess of Bedford, right next to us in this convoy was a flat top loaded with P-51s. And we knew they were our 51s. We were using binoculars and dividing them up and picking numbers out. And so we were all prepared to get there. You know, we had our airplane. But when we got to Stony Cross, there sat the 38. And they were all grounded for a modification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our mission over there before D-Day was actually softening up Europe, and as you know, studying the mission, that most of it was dive bombing, strafing, knocking off the trains, the trucks, anything that moved. Matter of fact, I think the Germans complained at one time that they had to move troops up after D-Day on bicycles. As they put them in the truck, we'd blow them up.
And after dark, we moved them all at night.
Once
we were strictly interdiction, all air to ground just about. And if there wasn't any German air that was in opposition to us on a day-to-day basis, you could go for a month and never see a German airplane. And then when you get lucky, like Larry did,
He must have seen some.
yeah, he saw 6 and got 5, I think.
How do you get 5 airplanes in 15 minutes?
Well, I would have got the other one, but he wouldn't get in my course on the way home.
How did you get 5? That seems like
Well, it was the biggest air battle of Europe, and it was about, 45, 50 of theirs, and there must have been about 20 of us,
Yeah, just about that.
something like that. But what they did, they hit was it the 392nd they hit first? Or
We had
fourth?
a low squadron, and they hit the low squadron first, and we were high squadron, and that put us at an advantage. And Larry never lost advantage. He stayed above them all the time. They yo-yoed and just did his old homeboy thing, which just like you were back at one of your training bases, and he did that, and it worked. And he did it well. I don't think we lost an airplane that day. Did we?
Huh?
We didn't lose an airplane that day, did we?
We didn't, not out of our squadron.
And,
Then if we'd had any guts, I think we'd have got a couple more.
yeah, if we'd have stayed there.
Going home when they were landing on that field, you remember?
Yeah.
But we didn't know how much ammunition we had. We hadn't lost a man. We'd had a good day, so what should we do? I called Jim. Jim says, let's call her quits.
Live to fight another day. You know?
Yeah, get them tomorrow.
5 at one time. It's got to be quite a feeling.
15 minutes. That's,
I don't think it was that long, really.
and we got the Frenchmen to vouch for that.
Yeah, that's right. That is right.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Were you flying together with him, Jim?
No, I wasn't there that day.
I wasn't
Gene
either.
Autry was with you that day.
Autry was with him.
Autry was with you.
Yeah, Arthur was
Really
on
awesome.
my wing that day.
And I've forgotten who else was with you. I don't remember.
Well,
Got
Autry,
to remember that's been a long time ago. Like,
Yeah, it can't. It's just like that missioner Dale Rankin gets killed.
Yeah.
I've been trying to think of the fourth man, and I can't think of who it
O.R.
was.
Johnson.
Huh?
Mousy Johnson.
was it Mousy?
Yeah.
Did he get killed?
No.
No, he was the 4th man on the flight. We lost Rankin that one day, but he's the only one we lost.
So it was you and I and Dale and Mousy.
Yeah.
Well, that figures. You know?
Yeah.
Well, he
went-
must have been aboarded then before we got there.
He's the one that lost his radio. Remember his
Yeah, he cost me the 45 airplane.
headset guy that came unhooked. Remember?
I don't remember.
He went screaming home.
He cost you 45 airplanes. How did he cost you 45 airplanes?
Oh, Jim and I were sitting at 18,000 feet in Mousy, and we looked down there, and we saw this row of about 20 Ju-88s going this way, and 90 degrees down this way, about 45 109s, and right in the center, a nice administration building in the little town. And I called Jim, and I said, Jim,
We did
now
not.
you guide me.
There wasn't any.
And I'm going down, I'm going to take them 20 Ju-80 first, 20 Ju-88s right on the deck, and I'm going to make a 270 right on the deck, right over the town. And then you line me up from up there at 18,000 feet so I can get them 45 109s, and I'll take them. And just then, Mousy called and said he's out of gas. And I said, what do we do, Jim? Of course, we didn't want to lose any pilots, see? He said, we maybe better take them home then. So we finally reluctantly, we took him home, then found out he didn't know we had outer wingtip tank.
Yeah.
He had the same gas as we did.
At least he should have had.
That would have been
Yeah.
my big day.
He wasn't. His outer tanks weren't feeding. But tell him about the day you dropped your fuel tanks. You remember?
Got what?
You dropped your belly tanks. Remember? We were escorting a bunch of B-26s. It was just a little milk run. Remember that?
I don't remember that one.
And we were going down to St. Dizier with the B-26 outfit, driving along about 12,000 feet, and we were just barely moved. B-26 moved pretty good, and we could just barely, didn't have to ask a whole lot to stay above them. Maybe you were along, Ed, I don't remember, but we got down there and a couple of 109s come out of the way above us. Overcast, high Cirrus. Remember, and these two 109s came down, and they popped back into that, and old Larry said, let's climb and get rid of our tanks. And he reached over and dropped these tanks, and all of a sudden he realized he had never used his external fuel, and he was damn near out of internal fuel. And he dropped two full belly tanks. And then he said, oops. And I've forgotten what other classy words he used. Like what shithead didn't turn my tanks on or something,
Remember that?
But we had to turn that off too.
Remember that day that we had that party at Stony Cross, and we mixed all our whiskey and docked alcohol and made that kickapoo juice. We had heavy heads the next morning, and you and I decided that we were just going over to the marshalling yard, drop our bombs, and come right straight home. And we got over there, and we saw this freight engine sitting in the crevice, and so without even thinking, we started down at it and shooting over the top. That was, Dobrowski was the one that flipped, yeah. And shooting over the top, and all of a sudden, I got steeping up to dive a little bit, and by the time I get it steeping up, I'm too low, and I catch the top of the engine, throws the telephone post, ties wire all over the airplane. One engine's on fire, feather that, and then I'm trying to get up into the clouds on the one engine, and then I'd get too eager, and she'd flutter down. That's right. By this time, they're shooting pretty good.
Yeah.
Finally get in, come home, I got 350 foot of wire, 8 different sizes still hung on the airplane.
No extra charge for the scrap hauling. No extra charge for the scrap hauling?
No, the colonel was mad as hell at me. And I told him he shouldn't be mad at me because I didn't even belong there. I wasn't supposed to come home. I just come home because I was his buddy,
When D-Day came, we flew the top cover. We started in, about 8, 9 o'clock at night, and we stayed with the ships. You could look down there and you could see every ship you ever heard of. And we stayed over there until about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We came back, and then we were back over the beach in about 4, 5, 6 o'clock. They used the 38s because the 38 could be recognized and anything else would be shot at. And we did all of the support of the ships in D-Day. After D-Day, we were the first outfit in. We went into A2 at Caen. And as a matter of fact, there's a monument over there for the 367th Fighter Group, including the 393rd. Part of our mission after that was the support of Patton's tank outfit. And there were every time they get in trouble, they'd call us, come in and help them, and we bailed out Patton many, many times.
Remember where we were at Reams? Was it Reams that General Patton sent this convoy back to the group? And we got champagne, like tons of it, that he had captured someplace, and he sent it back to the group. He wouldn't let his people have it, but he gave it to us. We had champagne and cognac and brandy.
Yeah.
Well,
Enough for an army.
Were you on that mission, Jim, where we took off and we were to go out and bomb, and then we were to land at a field, and they hadn't taken the field yet, but they said by the time you get there, they will have taken the field, and then we'll gas up the aeroplanes and bomb them, arm them again. You'll go out and bomb again, then you'll come back. We went out and we bombed, we landed at the field, and we got there. Patton's outfit was there. They got us out of the aeroplanes because they hadn't cleaned the snipers. He said, we have no bombs and we have no gas. We just took the field. Come on. We've liberated a lot of liquor. We went in and sat down with Patton and his outfit, and we spent time with him and good liquor, and they put enough gas in the airplanes with 5-gallon cans so we get on back to the base.
We couldn't. But we couldn't. They didn't really, they didn't really have control of the airport yet, but they thought they did.
Am I right? Was that a dirt field? Did we land on the dirt?
Grass. It was grass. It was a German airfield.
With
little flag.
There was one stretch there that we used to haul our bombs back all the time when, you
Yeah,
know,
we
if we
didn't.
didn't find a good target because they were short of bombs.
Yeah,
Transportation is the big problem. They couldn't keep us supplied with this stuff, see? And so then consequently when they get to that, then we'd have to back off and we'd come back and they'd defuse the bombs and take them off.
we didn't
No,
do
we-
that much, though.
Huh?
We didn't do that much. I could
Well,
always
a few
find something
times,
to put 'em
though.
on.
We went on one mission out there where we were on a just a seek and destroy mission. Anything beyond the bomb line was fair game. And we got out there and we saw a bunch of tanks down there in the woods, and we were 100 miles the other side of the bomb line. We started to come down, and Patton's tank outfit started screaming. We were dive quick, they were dish rag. And they started calling, dive quick, you're about to hit us. We pulled off, and then there was apparently a lot of confab between the high officials. And the next day they put 6 foot by 6 foot cerise panels on the back of those tanks, because Patton wouldn't stay behind the bomb line. When he could run, he wanted to go.
Well, he did go, too.
Yes, he did.
And he'd outrun his logistics and everything else. The only
What?
thing that could stay up with him was air. That could keep supporting ahead of him. His ground forces couldn't. And he'd run out of gas, run out of munitions, and run out of everything. And then he'd set. Us all caught up. But we could stay ahead of him. He liked that. And he always remembered that.
While he was running, Jim and I came back. I don't know why you and I were alone, but I was flying your wing. We came back, and we looked
Oh,
down.
this is that good story?
We looked down there, and there were about 50 trucks, big old 6x6 trucks loaded with German soldiers.
He was mad at me.
And
Remember that?
Jim started in strafing, and he took the first one. He couldn't just go down the line because he would hit the dirt. He took the first one, he pulled up, and he took the third one, and I took all the leavings. And before we got through, we'd shot up every truck. Every one of them either was burning or had blown up. Came back to base, and Jim had a hole through his wing, and somehow, I guess when he was pulling up, I got him, because he says that the hole in his wing came through the top.
I wasn't flying upside down. It wasn't like one. His Ed was a pretty good shot. He'd have been real good. I might not be it. Yeah, I can remember that.
Should I tell them the story about taking that French cow?
No, I don't think you ought to do that. You ought to tell him the story about Larry took. We went over, and I can't recall the deep, but we got involved in something, and Larry got hit pretty hard, and right at the bomb line, right just. And troops hadn't. We were still in England. We hadn't moved to France yet, and Scrappy got hit. And this old P-38 scrap iron 3, I think it was streaming a lot of smoke and fire, and about as high as this ceiling from the ground, and going about 400 miles an hour, and old Scrappy comes tumbling out of that thing, see? Right over the bomb line, right over the no man's land practically. And the chute opened, and it didn't open like this, it opened, because his movement was forward, not vertical. It was just horizontal. And then the British got you on
The German, that was the 17th Panzer Division.
Yeah, but the British picked you up, didn't they?
Yeah, after 6
And-
hours.
Yeah, well, they didn't want to rush right out there. They didn't really know how valuable you were. See? Well, they got him anyway. When we got back home, I said, Larry, and then Carroll Joy was the ops officer, Major Joy. He said, where's Larry? And I said, he's walking home, And he said, what the hell happened? And I said, well, he'd be along after a while. Nobody but me thought that, I don't think. I said, oh, he'll be at home. Hell, the guys in the POQ were rationing out
Dividing up
his clothes and everything else.
I got dibs in his pistol.
Sure enough, what was it, about
11:45 at night.
Yeah, he come back in a.
Well, we didn't
British
know
flew him
that-
back in an old Lysander, wasn't it?
By the way, the 15 more minutes, I'd have been declared an MIA.
Yeah. Yeah, then you'd have got a bonus, I guess, or something. But it did. But we got him back then, fortunately. Because if you hadn't got him back, the war would have lasted another 2 weeks or something. You know.
He was unimportant to the war mission?
Oh, yeah. He and I, and, you know, a couple other guys, a couple other good guys, we could have stopped it a year earlier, don't you think?
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't have taken all.
Well, that's a hell of a thing to attack the 17th Panzer Division.
With one airplane.
But how it started out, you see, we'd got this new pilot that they called Silas P. Beck. And I said to Silas, I said, how would you like to see some flash today? And he said, oh, that'd be great. So I said to Jim, Jim, you think we could find a little plaque over there to show Silas, you know? And Jim said, yeah. He said, I think we can find a little bit. So I said, okay, we will. So we went across the channel and docked our bombs, and we got uneventful, and we got halfway across the channel and checked all our gas, and everybody had lots of gas, see? So we turned around and went back in. Because what used to be a lot of fun, we couldn't knock a tank out shooting at it, you know? But if we could catch the tank going down the pavement, we could ricochet the shells right in back of them, and they'd come up into their belly, they'd bust in the fire and go ass over tea kettle, you know. God, beautiful sight, you see. So this is what we did. And all of a sudden we come on, it must have been 200 acres, huh?
Yeah.
200 acres of nothing but jeeps and trucks and half-tracks and guns. You never saw such a menagerie in your life. And I says, hot shit, we're going to have a field day today. And I started in. Well, the minute I got committed, Jim could see what was happening. So he went around to watch. And I went through. And boy, they got me. They got me, I'll tell you. I was the best Christian that ever lived right about that time. I laid on my belly down there, and of course when I hit the ground, I lost my sense of balance, see? And I'd try to stand up, and then I'd fall over. And then I'd try to stand up, I'd maybe fall over backwards, you know. Couldn't get my senses back. And then I realized they're shooting. So I hit the deck, and then I crawled inch by inch. And after about 6 hours, I heard this guy holler, come out with your hands up. And I said, I hope you're British or Americans. And he says, we're British. And they poured me a canteen cup full of brandy, and I never missed a gulp. Oh, the whole thing went right down. But what I found out about them was, you see, every time the Germans would try to come up to get me, they'd put up a big barrage and shove them back. See? Me, I thought all them bullets were for me. See? And there was a lot of them. And then I'd crawl a little more, and then they'd try again, and then they'd put up another barrage, and another barrage, and this the way it went on all afternoon. And all that time, I'm catching it, boy. I swear to God, if I ever got out of that one, I'd never shoot at another German. But it did.
Yeah.
But you know, it wasn't all fighting. When we go out and fly your missions, you come back, and you put it out of your mind. Once in a while, you got a little break, and you'd go someplace. Scrappy and I went to Paris. We ran into Jean Gabang and Marlene Dietrich. This is a fact. And we sat there and we drank with them, talked with them. Old Scrappy kept saying, hey, I got to touch those $1 million legs. He might have got to. John Gabang was in a movie with Ida Lupino before the war. And we got talking to John, and we found out that his house had been blown up by a bunch of P-38s that had gone after a target over there. And sure enough, I guess we were the ones that blew his house out. He was adjacent to an airport over there.
At Cherisy, France.
Yep.
Cherisy, was that way?
I'll tell you another kind of interesting one. You see, we were having a lot of trouble with these Red Cross trains. You know, they'd come with these planes with all the red crosses on them. So I said to General Burton one day, I said, now what we can do about these red cross things? I says, we don't want to sue them, you know. He says, well, we don't want to get in a pissing contest with a skunk. I'll never forget that. And he says, but I says, to tell you what you do, he says, get back there a little ways, he says, and just kind of lob maybe 1 or 2 bullets in, just to see what happens. Well, so I tried that the next time. I got back there and I was sitting real comfortably, and I lobbed a couple of bullets and that whole goddamn plane blew up. The whole thing, boy, I got the roughest ride. My airplane was black. I didn't think I was going to make it through. Debris all over, you know, going through it, leveled, took the track and everything for a good half a mile. A round circle that was just black when I got through. And here I come on the other side of it. Black too. Boy, that was a Red Cross train.
Yeah, they use the Red Cross International symbol as a means of transportation. So they put it on anything to get by. We got a Sunday morning mission one time, on the Sunday morning now. Fragged to go to this church in the south of France, you know. And that thing was a church, but it had great big red crosses on the church. Well, you don't normally have to mark a church as a means of identifying that it's not a target, because we just didn't target churches, but they'd gotten word. And so we went to this thing, and here's all these people standing around these churches, these Frenchmen, and I made a look at that thing and said, I ain't going to bomb that kind of church. And no. You know, and how it goes through your mind. Well, finally we said, okay, I said, I've forgotten who was with me. Were you there? Pinkerton was with me, I know. And, so I said, I'm going to drop one. We had 2 500-pound bombs and some rockets. And I said, I'm going to drop one bomb on this church and skip it through this church. And, man, I went back, and all these people are standing right next to us. And I skipped that bomb into that church door. And that building just damn near blew me out of the air. And it had all these big crosses on the church. We got rid of the red crosses at church, and of course a lot of innocent people, but this is what happens to you. You do funny things that you don't want to do. But you get a gut feeling that maybe you ought to go ahead and do it. So you do, and it turns out right.
It was strictly a case of, like Jim says, what you felt, you know. Yeah, you didn't know for sure. It's just like one day we were up there about 18,000 feet, and we saw 6 or 7 airplanes sitting down there on the ground. Young called me and asked me if I wanted to go get them. So I said, Roger, and I rolled it over, didn't change my setting, and I let that airplane go, and when I was getting just about to the airplanes, I looked, and I was darn near doing 650. You know, and they were redlined at 475. And I was just getting ready to shoot at them, and right over the top of them, all the firepower starts. And all these 6 airplanes were sitting on sticks made out of paper. I pulled them dive flaps. Boy, and that thing just made a 90 degrees straight up, blacked me out, black pitch. Boy, that thing took a awful strain that day, but they did tricks like that. Or they'd take a horse-driven vehicle and run it down a gully, you know, and you'd go down and get it, and then the guns from both sides would go get you. But you got towards the last, you got so you could pretty well smell it, you know, just about where it was too hot to go.
Well, you get to where you get pretty hard at this thing, like you scrape horse-drawn artillery. You know, and that's pretty hard to shoot a horse. I'm a horse lover, and I never did really like that kind of war, shooting poor animals. It makes you
I think about
squeamish, you know.
I think about the closest Chris and I ever got to getting pushing daisies was when we took Rankin along on this mission that we shoved them bombs. They had, what there was is mountains all the way around, and with just this one little gully in there. They had a marshalling yard, and they would shove the material out 3 different directions. They'd come through these tunnels, see? And we were going after this certain tunnel. And God, I remember Chris and I, you could almost put a cigarette paper between us. We were so close. And we got right in there and just dropped them things right smack in the hole. And then straight up the mountainside, we got to the top. That thing got slower and slower and slower. Pretty soon it felt like it had already stopped. And we just sat there, and I finally took itself over like this, and we went on.
Yeah.
Got on the other side, and here's these boxcars coming, going one after another. We'd slugged that whole mountain.
That's where Dale Rankin got killed, and Dale was the son of Tex Rankin, the world-famous stunt pilot who ran the academy, Rankin Academy up at Tulare. I had gone through, Dale was the upperclassman when I went through, but some of the things that you remember, I remember so vividly, our going out and searching for Glenn Miller, when Glenn Miller died, coming across the channel. I remember vividly another mission that we went on shortly after D-Day. Our troops had moved in. We had bombed the sub-pens over there at Brest. Troops had landed over there and had moved in, and Jerry had pulled all of their equipment, all of their soldiers back into the peninsula at Cherbourg. And we came down there, and they said, this is a mission that nobody has to go on. If you don't want your name on the board, take it off. Nobody did. And we went in, we were so low that when this thing was solid troops and equipment, we bombed the Cherbourg, or went across the straits and bombed with delayed action fuses the Cherbourg Peninsula. And we were so low that when we went in, I had to pull up to get over a fence. I think we had,
43 airplanes,
40.
and we lost 23.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I think I had the only airplane
5 minutes.
that hadn't been hit.
Huh?
I think I had the only airplane that didn't have a hole in it. One of the guys would come, well, I know that when I went across, somebody in a church steeple was shooting down at me. We had, the old colonel said he was going to give somebody a medal because the guy had flown through a tree, and he kept swapping engines because the oil coolers were full of leaves, kept swapping engines till he got back.
Yeah.
And
Kid at 396.
and Sam Malone said, well, how about me? I flew through 3 trees. And Colonel Young said, well, we're going to put you in for a pair of glasses. But this was set up as a suicide mission. You didn't have to go on it if you didn't want to. There wasn't one member that pulled his name off the board.
I flew under 100 trees, and he said, a couple of them were so damn short I couldn't get under them, so I flew through them. And the Young said, well, we're going to put you in for glasses. Can you believe that?
Of course, another thing you want to remember, you see, our group was strictly a close support group. We flew a few top cover missions, flew a few escorts, but most all our missions were right down there on the ground, pillboxes and trains and anything that was giving them problems, they'd send us in there. So we were right in there, ready to get shot in. In fact, I don't think I saw fighter airplanes over 4 or 5 times in 100 missions.
I don't think we used enough oxygen to worry about taking it, but after the invasion on 4th of June, in the next 10 months, I never saw 10,000 feet.
Jim, that oxygen on 100% was the greatest thing in the world to get rid of that hangover.
Yeah. I know, but
you got to remember also, we were good Christian boys that didn't do anything unless it was by the book.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't break the rules in any way.
Yeah. Well, there was only one regulation then. That's win the war.
Survive and win the war.
It survived.
I'm a ref.
Hmm?
I referee.
What was the referee's name? That was the biggest problem. We never knew who was in charge. So we were always looking for a leader.
Well, we figured that the Germans...
The other guy's leader.
We figured the Germans were willing to die for their country, and we were willing to help them.
I think perhaps the biggest thing I learned over there was hesitation. Anytime you'd hesitate or think about it, you were too late. Well, you had to go right now. You win.
Well, you don't think about the decision, you know, or time. You have to do it. You have to do it, and it has to be done right now. So if you're going to think about it, forget it, because it's too late. You better do it and then think about it. That was the whole thing.
But another thing I did notice, that everything we were doing over there, from the pickle barrel missions on down, they did the same damn thing in Desert Storm, only in a more sophisticated way.
Tell you the truth, though, and I stayed in, of course, and I saw service in Korea and in Vietnam and every other asshole war we've had. And in my lifetime, I missed Grenada and Desert Storm, and I put in, you know, for compensation because they didn't offer me the opportunity to go. I think when you make three, they ought to let you make the rest of them, don't you?
That's
But
right.
they didn't. But really, the true fact is that in the way we did it in World War II was pretty sad because we weren't trained to get in there. We did a hell of a job after we got there because of, just like the guy said, Americans persevere. You know, when those chips are down, they figure out a way to get the job done. It costs us a little more because we're not ready to do it like we ought to be. We weren't then. When we went to Desert Storm, it shows a thing that if you pay for it, you do it right, by God, you'll get it done right. And if you let the people who know how to run the mission run it, you'll get it done. And we did it. In my lifetime, I was in World War II, both in Europe and the Pacific, in Korea, in Vietnam, in that asshole thing we had in Lebanon back in the 50s, and see it all. But then finally we culminate into Desert Storm, and that's the first time that a military system has worked in my lifetime and yours, and in yours, where you gave a military man a mission and said, get it done, and then stood by and let him do it. And the military did it. And now they make fun of people because they did that job the way it's supposed to be done. And what you got to realize as you go on is that keep the politics out of the military business, and don't let the military get in the political business. And you'll be successful. If you mix the two, you're going to screw up like we did in Vietnam.
That's true. Amen. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. When this war started, World War II started, we had 39,000 men and officers in the Air Force. And we built from then, in 1 year, from the time that we started, we were over in combat. We were soda jerks, farmers, scrap iron collectors, and so forth.
Talk about you, Larry.
And we did, we're proud of what we did with what training we had. And we had one interest, and that was fight for this country. I thank God for people like you people who are carrying on and who have a nucleus to protect this country. And anybody that thinks that this country isn't in danger in the future is out of their mind.
Well, you have a bigger worry now than you've had before.
Absolutely.
Oh, I should get the punch in there that I'm a non-service connected veteran.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.